So I made the decision to add solar to my house. I'm kind of lucky. I've got a 2,200 square foot house, faces south, so I can pretty much cover this whole area with solar panels. I kind of did a little bit of research on the solar, and I decided that really the only way for me to do it economically was to do the job myself. Source the panels, either build or buy the mounts, and do the installation myself. So this is going to be a video dialogue of that process. Wish me luck. Okay, so step one of doing a solar panel system on my home was to do research. And the first thing, I went to my local utility, APS here in Arizona. They have a lot of good information. They have a pretty straightforward requirements document of what you need to do. And as far as figuring out how large a system, how many kilowatts I wanted, they basically did that for me. So with a 200 amp main breaker on the home, the maximum you can put on your house is a 15 kilowatt system. So I went ahead and saw if a 15 kilowatt system would fit on my house, and it did fit, and went ahead from there, and it was something that I thought I could afford, so that's the way I did it. So the next thing to do is basically follow the guidelines on the APS website. They have some sample drawings for submittals. With APS, you have to submit both a 3-wire drawing and a 1-wire drawing. With the City of Phoenix, they have some guidelines also that you can download, and they require just a 3-line drawing. So this is the 3-line drawing. You got to do the abbreviations, jurisdiction notes, electrical notes. They're really concerned about the first page. Then after that, here's the panel layout. My system will have 45 340 watt panels, which is a total of 15,300 watts, just over 15 kilowatts. They're broke into 3 groups of 15, and then each of those groups is separated into 2 strings. So I'll have 3 5,000 watt inverters. Each has 2 string inputs. So one string input will have 8 panels, the other string input will have 7 panels on each one. So they're laid across the roof. One group of 15s on the east side of the house. 2 groups are a little closer to the west side of the house where there's a little more room on the roof. The panels will be angled at 30 degrees to the sun, kind of laid up here. The electrical hardware conduit will come down off the roof onto the east side of the house where the current meter is now, and the inverters, disconnects, things like that, all be mounted on that east side of the house. Into the 3-line drawing. Hi, Max. Now, 3-line drawing, we have one string of 8 panels that will go into one half of the inverter, another string of 7 panels. So those feed into the rapid shutdown, which is required by the City of Phoenix, into a junction box. Then they'll meet up with another 8 and 7 string through rapid shutdown into another junction box, and then the third group of 8 and 7 for that string into a rapid shutdown into the last junction box, and then feed into a photovoltaic disconnect switch. Out of the disconnect, they'll feed into the 3 inverters, 2 strings into each inverter. Then those will parallel out. There are 5,000 watt inverters. They'll parallel into an AC combiner, so that those 3 inputs become, one 2-wire source. So it's like, what do they call it? Center tap or something like that. But basically you got your 2 hot wires and your neutral. So the 2 hot wires feed into a photovoltaic production meter, which is required by APS. That's just a meter that only monitors your photovoltaic output. Then you go into a non-fused disconnect, which is required by APS and the fire department to shut the system down. Then from there, I have an additional fused disconnect, and that disconnect was required by the City of Phoenix just because the wire run length from my circuit breaker to the non-fused disconnect was less than 25 feet, and that distance depends on your wire size, amperage, things like that. So I think I was about 12 foot of wire, so rather than move everything way down the wall, I just went ahead and put another disconnect in, and that brought it in compliance with code. And then the new circuit breaker panel that I'll be replacing the current one with is a panel from Siemens that's made just for solar panel installations. It has what they call a solar input, so it has a separate breaker that feeds right into the meter directly, so your photovoltaic is not going onto the same bus bar as your circuit breakers. The advantage of that is you don't have to derate your main breaker, so my main breaker can stay at 200 amps. And it just seemed like a very nice, clean setup. Also, my house was built in 1974, and I have a Franklin electric panel, which it's just not a good idea to have those older panels on your house. There's some history with those. And then from there, the APS on that circuit breaker panel will install their grid tie meter and monitor the electricity that goes back and forth. The stuff comes in I pay for, and stuff that goes out they pay for. So some more notes, and then a simple layout of how the panels will mount to the roof. One thing, the utilities are always trying to fight to pay less and less for solar electricity that's on rooftops. So with that, I was able to get my permit submitted to APS prior to September 1st. And with that, I was able to lock in 11.8 cent buyback. Now, they haven't determined for this year, but they say it's probably going to go down 10% every year. If if I would have done it a year or so ago, I probably could have got 30 cents a kilowatt hour. But regardless, I'm doing it now, and that's part of the motivation for doing it myself. Save quite a bit of money, shorten that payback period.